I am uber excited to introduce our guest speaker today. We have Miss Janelle Wellons. Miss Wellons is an aerospace engineer working at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory as an instrument operations engineer. Ms. Wellons graduated with her Bachelor's of Science in Aerospace Engineer from the prestigious MIT, also known as Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Her job consists of planning, generating, and validating the commands to operate scientific instruments in flight, as well as monitoring their health and safety. She also works to develop instrument ground data systems and concepts to be used in operations. Ms. Wellons is not just an aerospace engineer. She is an award-winning aerospace engineer. She won various team and individual awards, with the most recent being the JPL Bruce Murray Award for inspiring students to engage in STEAM, quenching their thirst for knowledge, and sparking curiosity greater than the stars in the sky. So that alone reminds us how grateful we are for this opportunity. So additionally, she serves as the president of the Black Excellence Strategic Team. Some fun facts about Ms. Wellons: when she isn't working, you can find her scuba diving, cosplaying, traveling, playing video games, enjoying the outdoors, and doing outreach for communities traditionally underrepresented in STEAM. So at this time, we welcome Ms. Janelle Wellons. Okay, so Ms. Wellons, I'm going to stop presenting so that you can.
Wow. I have never had an introduction quite like that. Thank you so much. No. Oh my goodness. So hello, everybody. My name is Janelle. I'm so happy to be with you here today. And I work at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory out in Pasadena, California. But when I was your age, I had never even heard of the place. What in the world is a Jet Propulsion Laboratory, or JPL? I grew up in New Jersey, actually. So, like any good story, let's start from the beginning of me in New Jersey living my life. So I'm going to share my screen for you all right now. Here we go. All right. So this is me. I guess little me, young me, but still me, right? I grew up in, you wouldn't hear this place, but it's called Logan Township. Little town. A bunch of us went to the same high school. It was shared. And I didn't know anyone who worked at NASA, let alone know anyone who knows someone who works at NASA, or even in anything related to space for that matter. But I grew up in an environment and in a family that loved my curiosity and encouraged me to do whatever I desired. So this is actually a picture of me at my mom's job on Bring Your Child to Work Day. And while my parents, neither one of them are in STEM or in engineering, my mom did work with engineers. And so she would bring me in and I would sit in the chairs, put on the goggles, and, just pretend for a day. I'm an engineer and I make stuff. But once I started getting older and I got to middle school and then eventually high school, I realized that I should probably start to think about what I want to be when I grow up, because it was something I never really thought of back then. I thought maybe I love animals, so maybe I'll work with animals. Or maybe I will get into the video game industry because I love video games. And I also love to read. And so maybe I could be a writer. There were so many options. And while engineering was on the table, it definitely wasn't, a done deal. And so when I got to high school and I started to talk to my classmates, I realized that they had a game plan. They had this thing called a 5-year and a 10-year plan, where basically they knew what they wanted to be doing and where they wanted to be in 5-10 years. So they knew what school they wanted to go to, what they wanted to major in, and when they graduated, they knew where they wanted to work and what they wanted to be doing there. And this was kind of surprising to me because I hadn't given it any thought at all. I mean, college? Both of my parents went to college, but neither of them graduated with a bachelor's degree. And so it wasn't like this was a topic that anyone in my immediate family was knew a lot about. So I kind of just continued to ignore it until I couldn't anymore. Because your third year in high school, you start to get mail addressed to you, which I always thought was strange because I never got mail, but I started to get a lot of it from colleges all over the United States saying, we have a track program. I ran track and cross country, so that sounded kind of cool. Or we have this and we offer scholarships, and there were just so many options. So I get all of this mail, right? And I start to not know what to do with it. So I hide it underneath my bed. And when I ran out of space there, I started to just throw it in the trash can. You know, like I didn't know what to do. It was very overwhelming. And so on one of these days, I got a pamphlet in the mail from this school called the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT. Never heard of it. So that thing was going in the trash. And as I was walking it over to the trash can, my mom happened to see what was in my hand, and she stopped me. And thank goodness my mom stopped me. She said, MIT, that's a good school. We need to look at this. So we did. We looked at the pamphlet, and it had all sorts of stuff in it, what the MIT was all about, and how they had a summer program for juniors going into their senior year of high school. And if you apply and you got in, you would get to stay at the school for 6 weeks. No parents, just learning with other students, getting taught by professors and teachers about science and math and engineering as well. And I had never done a true engineering project, so this sounded kind of cool, you know? Like, this would be a fun way to spend the summer. So my mom tells me we need to apply, and I kind of was like, but if I have to apply, I have to write 5 essays. I have to get teacher recommendations, but I did it all the night before it was due, hit the submit button, and forgot about it. And so when one of my classmates then was asking us, you know, what are you going to do this summer? I said, oh, I'm going to run cross country. That's what I had done every summer. But then I remembered I applied to that thing, and I said, or I'm going to do a program at this school called MIT, if you've heard of it. And he looked at me and said, MIT? MIT? Do you know what that school is? I said, I don't think so, actually. So for the first time ever, I did my research. And I found out that the previous year, this program had over 2,000 applicants, and they chose one person from New Jersey. So I realized right away my mom had wasted my time. Oh my goodness. I wrote all those essays, and for what? I was not about to get into this thing. I did not have straight A's. I was not the perfect student. I always did my best, and I did follow my interests and took classes that I enjoyed, but I was not perfect. And it just felt like this MIT place, this is the best of the best. And I just didn't consider myself the best of the best. So, you know, hey, no harm done. You apply to this thing and it's fine. So when my mom called me that spring and she said, Janelle, come home. You've got a package in the mail from MIT. I said, you know, what are you getting excited about, Mom? We already went over this. Not getting it. She's like, okay, but get home now. And I said, all right, fine. I left practice. I get home and my mom is like in the doorway with the package, like waiting for me. I'm like, Mom, why are you so like, I'm not getting in? And she looks at me and she says, Janelle, they don't send you a package to tell you you didn't get in. I said, oh my gosh. For the first time ever, I thought, wait a second, I might have a chance. I rip it open and I read the first line and it says, congratulations. Oh my good, congratulations, me? I got into this program at MIT. We did a little celebration. I was so happy, couldn't believe it. I went to the program. I met a whole bunch of people who are still friends of mine to this day. And I learned what it meant to be an engineer. This is a picture of all of the students who decided to build robots as their final project. And I wonder if you can find me in this picture. Let's see, did I put, no, okay. I am here. There you go. That's me. And so
Miss Wellons, I'm
yeah.
so sorry. We still see the picture when you were a little girl at your mom's job.
Oh, I don't know what. Do you see it now?
No, ma'am.
I don't know what's happening.
It says you're on slide 3. Yeah.
Huh. That's really strange. I'm switching the slides, but it's not. So I'll just do this.
There we go.
There you got it now?
Yes.
This is working. Okay, we'll just do it in this mode. So yeah, that's me. And this was the team. We had stayed up all night working on this project. And I remember I ran back to my dorm to get the red shirt that we're all wearing here. And I remember when I got my shirt on and everything, I went to use the bathroom so I could brush my teeth, wash my face. And then I remember waking up. I had fallen asleep on the toilet. We were up all night working on this thing. Got no sleep. I fell asleep, but it was okay. Only 5 minutes had passed. I was still on track to get there in time. And it was life-changing. I went from never hearing about this school called MIT, which I found out was one of the top schools in the world for engineering, to going there for a summer. And before, when I didn't know what to do with my life, I now finally had a goal. I want to go to MIT. That's where I want to be. And so I applied to MIT. I freaked out every single day leading up to the decision, and I got in. And when I got there, this is what MIT was to me. These are pictures that I took while I was on campus as a student. And honestly, I think they do a good job of describing how weird this place is, because it definitely is weird, but in all the best ways. In the top left, I took my first physics classes at MIT in this building that looks kind of like Dr. Seuss. You see how it's like slanted in some places and really interesting. And then the top right, some of you may have an idea of what's going on here. This is the tallest building. I took some math classes here. I was coming back from office hours at college, and I saw that people were playing a game on the side of the building, and that game was Tetris. And so it was just a normal day in the life. And on the bottom, that's actually a roller coaster, a wooden roller coaster that the dorm built to welcome the new freshmen to campus. This was the type of place that MIT was, and this is why I wanted to be there. But then the question is, what next? Like I told you guys, I never had plans. So once I got to MIT, I wasn't exactly sure what I should be doing next. What should I major in? What should I study? And so I was thinking I'd become a mathematician and I'd study math because I really loved math in school. But then I spoke to some upperclassmen and they encouraged me to just try out an engineering class. Said, okay, well, we got our mechanical, we got computer, electrical, we have civil, chemical. There's lots of options. Then I came across this engineering called aerospace engineering. And I knew a little bit about aerospace engineering because in that summer program, one of the professors was in that major. But what I did know is that it had the word space in it. And I always thought space was pretty cool. Anyone else think space kind of cool? Because I certainly did. And so I decided I'll take the intro to aerospace engineering class. And so I go there and I'm on my first day and the professor, he's at the front of the room and he's talking about all the things we're going to learn that semester. We're going to learn the rocket equation. We're going to learn how planes fly. We're also going to learn the history of spaceflight. And he shows this photo of an astronaut fixing the Hubble telescope. This is crazy. I'm looking at this like, wow, Like, this is what people in aerospace engineering can do one day. And he points at the astronaut in the photo and says, that was me back in the day. Like, wait, hold on a second. What do you mean? That was you? And I'm saying this all in my head, putting two and two together. My professor is an astronaut. An astronaut. In that moment, I went from knowing no one who was even related to NASA to being in the same room as an astronaut. And I couldn't just walk away from that. How many times in your life do you get the opportunity to be taught by an astronaut? And so that's why I chose this major. And so eventually I learned about this place called the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, this JPL. And all my professors were always talking about it. Have you ever, they say, let's pretend we're going to land something on the surface of Mars, like JPL. Let's pretend we're going to Saturn, like JPL. Let's leave our solar system, like JPL. JPL, JPL. It was everywhere. So, of course, that's where I wanted to work. And so once I started going to career fairs at my school, where companies from all over would come to find students to do internships and to work at their companies for the summer, I was, of course, in what line? JPLs. And so I was excited. I had my resume. I was in line with all my classmates. And I heard one of them talking to a recruiter about this cool project that he was doing that was going to be sent on a rocket in a couple of months. And I thought to myself, I don't have any projects getting sent to space. And so, I wasn't that surprised when I didn't get the internship. That's right. I was rejected. But it's okay. It just told me that I had more work to do on myself. I could improve. I could be a person that JPL wanted in the future. And so I joined clubs and I started taking classes in different things that interest me, like circuits and electronics. And then the next year, I'm ready, I'm more confident, and I get my resume ready, I hand it over, and once again, I don't hear back at all. No internship for me. And so senior year rolls around. This is my last chance. But I can't get an internship this time. I'm graduating. I have to get a full-time job. And so I was a little bit nervous. But you know what? I wasn't about to give up. Why would I give up? This is my chance, and I still have it. And, I think I felt a little different about myself, too. Before, I kind of felt like, did I really belong here? Was I really as smart as MIT thought I was? And look at what everyone else was doing. I'm not as good as them. But I had to remind myself about Janelle, who was the freshman, compared to Janelle, who was the senior. We were two different people. I had learned so much. I went from knowing nothing about aerospace engineering to being on projects doing actual aerospace engineering. And so I got in line, I was confident, and I don't know what happened or why something changed, but I got not just one interview, but 3 with people who are hiring from JPL. And eventually, the rest was history. So I'm at JPL. And my job title is Instrument Operations Engineering. I had never heard of it. Any of you hear of it? What is an instrument operations engineer? I was just happy that I got the job, so of course I accepted it, but I did not know what I was going to be doing. So the first day as I'm driving to work in California, moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, I passed the sign on the highway that says next exit, NASA JPL, and I start to get a little nervous. I'm starting to sweat a little bit. I'm having those thoughts again. Should I really be here? Am I going to get myself in trouble? Are they going to find out that I don't know what I'm doing? But I got there and I found out that I was going to be a part of this amazing team called the Cassini mission, and that my coworkers were friendly. They were going to train me, and also that I had one of the coolest jobs ever. This is me, Instrument Operations Engineer and JPL's Mission Control. Doesn't it look like this sci-fi type of thing? The dark lights, the glowing, look at all the screens. This was the first building I ever worked in when I came to JPL, and it is still my favorite building today. And I love it because it also helps me to explain my job and what I do. So let's break it down. Instruments. What kind of instruments are we talking about here? Are they musical? No, they must be something else. I like to think of it this way. At JPL, we are one of NASA's centers, and we are primarily in charge of building space robotics, robots that go to space. That's us. And we sometimes call those spacecraft. So we build the spacecraft, and the spacecraft is the vehicle. It takes us from point A to point B. And these instruments, they are called scientific instruments. They tell us more about the destinations that we go to. So we had the vehicle, we've gotten to Mars, or we've gotten to Venus, or we've gotten to Saturn. And once we get there, the scientific instruments collect all different sorts of data. And that data tells us more about where we are. It's where we get all the science from, all the discoveries. It's the cool stuff. It's the reason why we go there. So instrument operations. It's my job to operate these instruments in space. And I know that sounds crazy. I mean, this is the reason why I hadn't heard the job, because I had never done it before. Operate something in space. But this building that I'm in this picture right here, is Mission Control Center, and is where all the operations happen when we communicate with stuff out there in space. So how in the world does that even work? How do you talk to stuff in space? We use these giant antennas located all over the world, not just America, all over the world. This one is actually in Australia. And as you see, there's some zeros and ones coming out of this antenna. And these zeros and ones are instrument language. They're machine language. It's the language that they understand. So if the command is take a picture, we send 011100011101, and the instrument sees that and it says, oh, you want me to take a picture? I can do that. So it's my job to talk to the scientists. The scientists know what they want to discover or see or learn about. They tell that to me. I say, and then I go on my computer, and now that we're in the pandemic, I do it right from my bedroom where I'm talking to you all from right here now. And I generate those commands, those ones and zeros that the instrument understands, by using tools like coding, and even those screens, when you think of a hacker with the hood pulled on and the black screen and the green letters. That's what I do to make our commands, and I get them sent out of these antennas to talk to our instruments and send them what we want to do. It's also my job to make sure they stay what we call safe and healthy. We kind of talk about them like they're people or something, but once they get out there in space, we need to also make sure that they're working the right way. And so that is the job of an instrument operations engineer, and that is my job. And so when I first got hired to JPL, my first mission was on Cassini. And this is Cassini. On the left side, it's the real deal. That was Cassini when it was still on Earth, being built at JPL. And it's about the size of a school bus standing up and down. Imagine a school bus. And on the right side, that's just a model for fun, for people like me who wanted to take a picture with the Cassini spacecraft. And I found out that Cassini was launched in 1997, and I know that for the majority of you students, of all of you students more likely, you probably weren't born then, because this is how old I was. That's me and my mom. I had never heard of Cassini because Cassini launched when I was a baby still. And once it finally got to Saturn, I was hired and I was still able to work on it all those years later, almost 2 decades later. It's kind of crazy how well everything works. And so that's good and everything. I joined the project. I learned what to do. I learned about my job, and I'm sending these commands, and it's my job to operate Cassini's cameras. And I'll never forget when I saw the first images that my commands made because they looked like this. Like this is not an illustration. It's not an artist rendition. It is not fake CGI. No. This is a real image of Saturn's rings and its moons. And we were taking the pictures on the instrument ops team. Wow. Could not believe I was part of that. Oh, we learned so much about Saturn while we were there. And this is probably my favorite photo of Saturn ever. I have it hanging on my wall in my bedroom. And it just reminded me how amazing and how grateful I was to have a job at a place that was really making history, making history. And I always find it interesting that when I joined JPL, I knew I'd be doing engineering, but it's so much more than that because the whole world was watching as Cassini ended its mission. This is in 2017, and it ended its mission because we ran out of fuel. Just like the car, the spacecraft needs fuel, and we ran out of it. And so we on purpose ended the mission by burning Cassini up in Saturn's atmosphere by going really fast. You can think of it like holding your hand outside of a really fast moving car. You know how the air pushes your hand back, you feel it? That's what we did with Cassini until it broke up. And we did it because we didn't want our space junk to just be flying around with no way for us to control it, where it could accidentally hit one of Saturn's beautiful moons that could contain life. And so we ended that mission and we spread the word. It wasn't just JPL, it was the whole world. Space is not a place for one person. It is a place for humanity. And through all of that, spreading the word and making videos and teaching people about what Cassini discovered, we ended up winning NASA's first ever Emmy Award. And that's a picture of me holding it. An Emmy. I'm an engineer, but my team won an Emmy. That's amazing. We had film people from Netflix, from PBS, from Nova, all over coming to work, filming us, trying to collect as much information they could about the end days of Cassini. And one of my favorite shows that was put out about it is called 7 Days Out. If you have Netflix, maybe you want to check it out. There's an episode all about Cassini's grand finale, and I may or may not make a 5-second cameo in the background. You'll have to see for yourself. But that's me. That's what I do at NASA JPL. And today, I'm working on all sorts of missions. I'm working on missions that are at the moon, making maps of the temperature of the moon's surface so that we know where to send humans when we put astronauts back. I'm also working on missions on my favorite planet ever, Earth, our home. I have a mission called the Multi-Angle Imager for Aerosols, measuring pollution in cities around the globe so we can do a health study to find out more about what kinds of pollutants harm people. And I love that mission because it directly benefits the people of Earth. That mission is set to launch next year. I'm also joined 2 new missions just this month, actually. And one of them is called SWAT. It's also launching next year. And we're working with the French to basically build a spacecraft and send it to space to measure sea level rise. And the last project I'm working on right now is called Sentinel-6. And it launched last year. So it's still pretty new to space. And we're operating it right now. And it's also adding to the knowledge and data and science of ocean level rise, something that we should definitely know about so that we can protect our Earth going forward. So that's all about me. I've done all the talking. Now I would love to hear any questions if you have them.
So at this time, Ms. Lucas, do you have a 6th grade question that we can ask Ms. Wellons?
Yes, we have a question from Lucas from the East Campus. He wants to know, what did they discover on the moon?
Great question, Lucas. So, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, the mission that's at the moon right now that I helped to operate, actually has discovered quite a few things. One, it's made a map of the moon. So, you know how we have like Google Maps and you can look at Earth and go anywhere on Earth? There's actually like a Google Moon too that was created using the maps we made with our instruments. So, there's that. We also have discovered that there are really cold places on the moon, particularly at the poles. You know how Earth has a north and south pole? The moon does too. And we have found that there is very likely ice stored on the poles of the moon. And this is important because ice is water. And water is a very valuable resource for astronauts, especially when they're not on Earth. It can be used for all sorts of things. And so we discovered those two things. And lastly, what my instrument does specifically, measuring the temperature, it helped with the ice discovery and is also helping right now to help us find a good landing spot for astronauts who may go back to the moon on this mission called Artemis that NASA has just selected astronauts for. And so the temperature kind of helps to show where craters are on the moon. And we don't want to land in a crater, so it's helpful to have that information.
Thank you so much for that answer, Miss Wellens. Miss Ellis, do we have any 7th grade questions?
Good afternoon, Miss Wellings, Miss Whitaker. We do not at the moment.
Okay, so we'll move on to 8th grade, Miss Wellens. In 7th grade, you can jump in. It's not too late. So Miss Wellens, from 8th grade, we have Adrian Hernandez from the Southwest campus, and he actually has 2 questions. So the first one is, what video games do you play?
Ooh, great question. I honestly play them all. Growing up, it was Sonic, Mario, Zelda, Harvest Moon games. I've played literally everything. Fighting games, Super Smash Bros. Right now, I have a PlayStation 4 and a Nintendo Switch. And on my PlayStation 4, I'm playing Final Fantasy. And on my Nintendo Switch, I'm playing the game called Hades. I recommend both.
Okay, thank you for that. So he does have another question. It says, have you and your team discovered any planets that may be able to sustain life? I love that question.
Yes. So I am not a part of the team that's looking for life on other planets or even looking for, planets outside of our solar system. But there are teams at JPL that do that exact kind of work and missions and telescopes that help us do that work. And so in the nearest future, in the latest news that I have heard on that front, which could be old because this is not my expertise, is TRAPPIST-1. And perhaps I can provide a link in the chat maybe about it. But TRAPPIST-1 is basically this other solar system that has been discovered through our telescopes and astronomers that has multiple planets that could be in what's called the Goldilocks area. Not too hot, not too cold, maybe good enough for people like us. So that has been discovered. And back at JPL, there's actually this thing on the wall in one of the buildings that keeps a running tally of all of the different exoplanets that we've discovered and how many we think are similar to Earth. And that number is actually really small, single digits. But I'm excited to see what else people discover and find.
Thank you for that. And that was a great question, Adrian. And Aaliyah Batiste, I believe she's at Southwest. She had a similar question, so you did answer it. She mentioned, have you guys seen any life or animals on another planet? So we got that question answered as well.
Actually, that's a slightly different question. I would like to talk about that.
Okay, perfect.
So people are always really curious, is there other life out there? And the answer is I'm not sure. However, there's been some really promising discoveries right in our own backyard, in our solar system. So if you've heard of JPL before, you probably have heard of us from our Mars rovers. We are currently the only place in the entire world that's ever successfully landed anything on Mars, including the Perseverance rover that landed on Mars in February of this year, which is amazing, amazing. And so when we are going back there, we landed in a strategic place that we believe may have water underneath its surface. And what's interesting about that is that we often associate water with possible life. And Mars is not the only place that we believe has water. We also, when we were at Cassini and we were at Saturn, we discovered this amazing moon called Enceladus. And Enceladus is a giant ball of ice. It's like you could skate on its surface, all icy. And underneath the surface of that ice, we believe there to be a saltwater ocean, just like the ones here on Earth. So we want to go back. That's why we didn't leave our space junk to crash into Enceladus and leave all of our germs all over the place. So we have Enceladus, we have Mars, and we also have Europa, a moon at Jupiter that is very similar to Enceladus. Icy, ocean underneath, and there's a mission right now called Europa Clipper that's in development that is going to have us visiting Jupiter and its moon Europa to see if we can discover more about its water underneath the surface.
Thank you for that, and thank you for that clarification. So great question, Aaliyah. I almost got swept under because I didn't know, so I've definitely learned something in that moment. Thank you so much. So that was 8th grade, so I'm going to turn it to Miss Lucas. Do we have a 6th grade question?
Yes, we have a question from Alexander from the East Campus again. He says, does NASA have the biggest control center, and is there a person that went to the moon?
Great question. So NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, where I work, we have a one-of-a-kind control center. So there's different types of mission controls. There's one in Houston, actually, and that one is responsible for communicating with our astronauts. So anything related to human spaceflight, their mission control, that's the place to be. Since we're responsible for our robots, we are the one-of-a-kind mission control center that's able to do those communications. And not just for America and for NASA, but for other countries as well, which I think is really cool. And so it's actually a historical building, our mission control, because of its uniqueness. And so for that reason, it can also turn into a bunker just in case we need to shut things down in order to keep our spacecraft still operating and up. We always have people in that building 24/7, 7 days a week, since the 1960s when it was created, which is wow. Now, as for have we ever sent a man to the moon? Yes, we have. That happened in 1969. We sent our first man to the moon, and I believe there's a total of 13 astronauts who had been to the moon, and they were all a part of the Apollo program, the Apollo missions. But since the Apollo missions ended, we have not sent anyone back to the moon, which is why this Artemis mission is so exciting. I wasn't around when man touched the moon, and that was televised and people were watching and it was so excited. So I am looking forward to seeing the first woman touch boots to the ground on the moon with the Artemis mission.
Thank you for that. Since we don't have a 7th grade question, we're going to jump to a question from our staff. So Miss Ellis asked, what advice would you give a student who isn't strong in math and or science yet, but has an interest in space?
I love that. It reminds, sometimes you just see the NASA and everything, but you don't see the mistakes along the way or the failures along the way. My advice to you is that you are just getting started. What I don't want to ever happen is for you to give up on yourself. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. There is no point in your life when it's all going to be over for you. There are people currently working at NASA today who didn't do well in middle school, who didn't do well in high school, who didn't get a job at NASA right after they graduated. There are people who got their degrees in English and literature and still found their way to NASA one day. So if that tells you anything, it's that your past doesn't matter nearly as much as your future and how you approach your future. So if you have a goal and you have a dream to work in STEM, to be an engineer one day, to work for NASA, don't worry so much about what has happened in the past, but focus your time and your efforts and your dedication to what you can do in the present and going forward. So continue to give it your all. You may not get it the first time. I don't get everything the first time. I took physics and was very confused. I wasn't exactly sure what was going on until I took another physics class and then a third physics class, and then it started to make a little bit more sense. So don't be hard on yourself. We don't always get things on the first go around, but it doesn't mean that you won't get it one day going forward. So as long as you don't give up, your future is going to be bright.
If we could summarize all that and put it on a t-shirt, I would. That was everything that we needed. Okay, so I believe we're back at, we're at 8th grade now. So we have a comment or question from LaTanya Palmer, the Southwest campus. She says, what is your longest mission?
Ooh, I actually know the answer to this one. Okay, talking about JPL again, space robotics, in that world, what is our longest mission? And I'm just going to treat it as, what is the longest mission we have that's in space or was in space? That would be the Voyagers. So there is a spacecraft called Voyager 1, and it has a twin called Voyager 2. And both of them are in space right as we speak and communicating with us, sending those little ones and zeros, right, to check in. Hey, we're alive. We're still going. Both of these spacecraft have left our solar system. Now, let me give you just some sense of scale. When we want to talk to the rovers on Mars, it takes 11 minutes for our signal to get there and 11 minutes for it to tell us that it got there. That's traveling at the speed of light. That's how far away Mars is. Saturn is almost a billion miles away from us. So when we sent a signal to Cassini, it took an hour and a half traveling at the speed of light just for it to get there, and an hour and a half for us to get it back. Now, the Voyager missions, we're talking anywhere from around 36 to around 40 hours to get your signal heard by that spacecraft. That's how far away it is. But it's still working, and it's working on about as much power as in your hair dryer. Your hair dryer is powering a spacecraft that's right now out of our solar system. What a wild thought, right? And so the Voyagers have been in space for over 40 years, and they are currently our longest lasting mission.
I'm learning, so I know, and I know it's not just myself, but I'm learning so much with every question that we're getting answered. So thank you. So we're going to go back to 6th grade, and there was a student who asked, did the ship burn while trying to get back to Earth from Saturn? And this is Maurice Russell from Southwest Campus.
All right. So no, the ship didn't burn on its way back because we never told it to come back. So when our spacecraft, when we end the mission or we're done with them, the goal is not to bring them back to Earth because they're only useful when they're out in space. They were designed to tell us more about things out in space. They're not picking things up they're not collecting things to bring back to Earth. They're there to observe and report back home with antennas. So when we ended the Cassini mission, we actually burned ourselves up at Saturn. So Cassini is actually part of Saturn today. That's how we like to think of it. Cassini gave Saturn a big hug and now is a part of it. And so Cassini is still out there, and that was on purpose. We didn't want to bring it back home. And there was one thing that I wanted to share, if that's okay, maybe just very quickly, because I think it's oh, I'm sorry. Can I steal your screen for a second? Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay. So there was something I wanted to show you all, because JPL and NASA is not just all about the work all the time. It's all about the fun too. So in my time at JPL, I have done and seen and experienced things I never would have thought were possible. In the top left, maybe some of you may have heard of this guy. His name is Mark Rober, and he's a YouTuber who has gone viral for the elephant toothpaste, the glitter bombs. If you haven't heard of him, he's a fun person to look up. And he also used to work at JPL. And that's a picture of both of us in front of the Spaceflight Operations Facility, which is home to the Mission Control Center, where I work. And so one day, I'm just leaving, and he's there. He's there to make one of his YouTube videos. And I said, can I have a picture? And he's like, yeah, you can have a picture. And so we took one. I also have interns. The top middle picture is me and my intern. Every summer, I love to host interns because I want students to know that there is room for them in space. And so I have a great time with my interns. And maybe one day we can work together too. In the top right, we got Snoopy. I was just online and someone was like, Snoopy's here. Snoopy's outside. I was like, oh my gosh, drop everything. Forget about those instruments for a second. I got to go see Snoopy. So I got to see Snoopy. He's wearing his astronaut suit. And on the bottom, you guys know about the Emmy. I got to stand in front of the Mars 2020 rover, which is this guy, actually, out of his shell, that got shipped over to Florida to be launched to Mars and landed this past February. This is it in the box. And I was just got to casual, see it get packed up, put in the box, put on the truck. It's like, this is the kind of environment we're in. And my favorite day at JPL is October 31st, Halloween. Why is it my favorite day? Because that is the date that JPL was born. And so we go all out. All out. Pumpkin carving contest. All the mechanical engineers, they go, they take it to a whole nother level. It's not your normal pumpkin carving contest. And we go around and we get to see all the pumpkins. And everyone dresses up in cartoons, including me. That's me holding the bone in my costume. I actually won that year. I'm pretty proud of that. And even if you have an important review, let's say you're doing this review that determines if your spacecraft is ready to be launched to space, people will come in wearing a Darth Vader costume and give their presentation. And it's totally fine because JPL respects Halloween. So, it's not all work, it's fun too. And I just want you all to know that about STEM and engineering. The things you're learning are important so that you don't have a hard time doing your job and you're ready when you come to a place like JPL. So taking your work seriously now while you're a student is always going to be important to prepare you for the future. But don't think that your whole career is going to be a struggle and not understanding things. It actually can be very fun and very rewarding.
I thank you so much for that. I know we only have 5 more minutes to honor your time, and we have plenty more questions. So at this time, we're looking at the questions like, which one do we ask?
We can rapid fire. Let's see what I can answer.
Okay, let's see. So Miss Lucas, would you like to pick a question?
Yes, we have a question from Yuli from the East Campus. Can we live on the moon if we had all the resources we need?
Answer, I think so. It hasn't been done yet, but check out that Artemis program. There are plans to make habitats and places for astronauts to be able to stay and do work. All we have to do is protect ourselves from radiation and harmful particles that are in space, and I think it's possible.
Okay, the next one, I feel like it's time. We have Jasmine Zabeta from Southwest. She says, what is your favorite planet in the solar system? Hers is Neptune.
Ooh, I love that. Neptune is a unique one. I don't hear that very often. Mine, I got to go with planet Earth. It's our
Okay.
home and it's quite beautiful.
Yes. Okay, Miss Lucas, you have another question?
Yes, I do. Faith from Southwest would like to know, what type of degree do you have and how many years did it take?
I have a bachelor's of science in aerospace engineering, and it took me 4 years.
Hmm. Okay. So, Miss Ellis, do you have a question that you would like to ask?
We have an anonymous because that student forgot to put their name and campus. Please do that so that we can shout you out. But the question is, did you find aliens and any good information about Pluto?
We did not find any aliens that I know of. Sorry to disappoint. And what about Pluto? We had a mission called New Horizons. If you search that on Google, New Horizons JPL, you'll see some really beautiful pictures.
Okay, so the next question. Have you ever spent the night on a planet? I've seen on the Discovery Channel that some people are able to.
So I have never spent the night on a planet, and actually no one has in actuality, but what you probably saw were these areas where they put you out in the desert where it's kind of like Mars, and you're stuck in this little habitat with maybe 6 other people, your fellow astronauts, and you pretend to live like you are on another planet so that we can be prepared to send people for the real thing one day.
Got you. Okay, Miss Lucas?
Yes, we have a question from Alexa from Southwest. Does water boil or freeze in space?
Well, it depends on where you're at. There are some hotter planets, there are some very cold planets, and it depends on the pressures you're under. So, short answer, it depends.
Okay. We have a question. How do you feel about Elon Musk?
How do I feel about? I absolutely love the work that SpaceX is doing, that other space companies are doing, because it's enabling us to make space available to more people, which is the goal.
Okay. We have, what do you cosplay as?
I cosplay as Link from Breath of the Wild, Nintendo Switch game, and you can actually see the helmet that I wore in my picture. That my Halloween costume was actually the cosplay that I created, and it's right up there.
Okay, and I think we have time for one more. We have Dee Dee. We don't have a name, but a student from Southwest. Have you ever traveled and experienced different discoveries?
I have traveled. The last place I traveled was actually Japan. Oh, no, actually, it was Mexico. But I traveled to multiple places. I went to Italy to do research on lunar greenhouses with my astronaut professor for a summer when I was in college, and I traveled for fun. I like anime, so why not go to Japan?
Okay, and I think we have time for one more. I do want to do this one because we do have a teacher that put a question. Mr. Warren from the Southwest campus says, does SpaceX and NASA work together at all?
Yes, absolutely. One, NASA actually helps to fund the work that SpaceX is doing. And two, SpaceX is looking to NASA for guidance on how to make space travel safe. Because if you're going to send NASA astronauts on your capsules and on your rockets, you need to prove that you can do it in a way that's going to be safe for them. And that's working with them. So there's tons of collaboration going on there to make sure that we are doing things the right way.
Well, I do want to honor your time. We did have a few more questions, but I do want to honor your time. And we are so appreciative for you being here with us today. We thank you. Even just to see our students like typing so fast to get some questions in, that lets us know that they really are engaged. And we will make this recording available to them. So we thank you so much, Ms. Wellons. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you for having me.
Of course. So we will definitely be in touch. At this time, we're going to ask students to go ahead and return to your class at this time. So what time is it? At 2 o'clock, go ahead and return to the class that you are supposed to be in at 2 p.m. Faith says she loves you. So, and Mr. Warren said, thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. I'm happy to do it.
Yes. So we're getting some smiley faces in there. We're getting a lot of thank yous. We're getting some last minute questions. We're honoring our time, everybody. So go ahead and return to class at this time. Bye. Love you. Thank you from East 6th grade. So you're getting some shout outs and some love there.
Oh, thank you.
Love you so much. So you're going to get a lot of Googles. If they track your Google search history, you'll get some Googles today.
That's totally fine.
This was amazing.